Hello, it's John Anderson from the AI Institute, and I'm here with Anthony. Anthony is the AI business strategist on our team. He's an incredibly successful businessman. He's written a great book on Amazon, Run Frictionless. He's exited two companies. He's had a really successful career in business, and it's such a privilege and honor to have him on the team. And today's session is really about Anthony just going into a couple of business transformations that you've led the way on, and the lessons that founders watching can learn from those. So, I'd love to hear about any particular business transformation projects that you're particularly proud of, or that have inspired you.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for having me on the podcast today. Looking forward to sharing my experiences and hope they're useful. Um, let's think now. Let's start with an example with a recruitment company. And you probably know this more than anybody, given your background. But part of the recruitment crunch is every time they get a brief, they get a lot of inundated with CVs, and they've got a lot of pre-screening calls they have to make. Now, these calls don't go for very long; they're only sort of 15 minutes. But you've got to try to make an appointment to try and make that call, and try and connect with that person, and then record all that information into a document. You're talking like 2, maybe 3 days it can transpire before you really start the proper candidate process. So we looked at that kind of load time, and what we realized was, wow, like it's a lot of time for a candidate to find another role, and a lot of time for a client to run away and find another recruitment company.
Absolutely.
So the type of transformation that took place was we realized that the candidates often go into what we called a application drive, where they would spend 15, 20 minutes applying for many different positions. Could even be longer. And so what we designed was an experience where they received within a few minutes an email where they could dial in and talk to us. And so the email would invite them to come into a pre-screening call straight away while they're in that zone of applying for roles. So the callback was really high. The response rate was really, really high. And this is where we used the automation and the AI. So we had an AI voice recognition system with an AI pickup that would take the content and then put it into cells and then analyze it. So what took 3 to 4 days for them got compressed down to about 24 hours, where they would have the majority of that content not only in the system, but also be able to very quickly realize who were the candidates that they want to focus on.
Just incredible. So 3 to 4 days down to 24 hours.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then I guess there's also, what sort of time does that and energy does that free up from the people that were doing that task in the past? They're able to prospect for more clients. Are they able to, actually do more curated long form interviews with the people that go through it? So it's also that time and energy freeing up that's so valuable.
Yeah. So what we're able to do is essentially create free capacity. What they decided to do with the free capacity was pretty interesting. When we analyzed their entire recruitment process, we realized that by the time the recruiter got to actually sending the candidate recommendations to the client, like that particular interaction, which is pretty high value, was done quite sloppy because they were pretty tired and exhausted by the process, time strapped. So what they then began doing is using that spare capacity and putting it in another place to improve that experience, make that package much better, so that the client could make quicker decisions and come back to them with what they wanted, and then they could secure the candidate faster as well.
I love that. And, one of the reasons why it's so important is from the business's perspective. That's when they actually get paid, right? When they get when they get their candidate accepted and onboarded into the company, that's when they get that success fee in the recruitment industry. So it's such a pivotal part of it. It's the nexus. So they're putting their time into that part that really matters.
Yeah, it's also the part the customer remembers too.
Mm.
because unfortunately they don't get any points for pre-screening calls. They only get brownie points when they deliver a candidate. And so packaging that really well made a big difference to the relationship with the client as well.
The product is the talent, not the pre-screening calls. It's great. All right, let's move on to another transformation.
Yeah, so another one that I worked on in 2023 was a custom kitchen manufacturer. And what was really interesting when we first got started, it really wasn't so much about transformation through artificial intelligence. It really was just purely business strategy. And one of the strategic decisions that they made as a kitchen manufacturer was they weren't going to serve retail. So they weren't going to serve mums and dads directly. They were only going to serve the building community. So builders who were building a home, who needed a kitchen, that was their target. And so that strategic decision was really important. It painted them to be a very different organization because a lot of their competitors focused on the retail business. But what it also meant was later, the kind of company, the types of interactions we were going to have, how we run the business would all be shaped and optimized around serving builders as opposed to serving retail, which is a really different customer profile.
Got it. So just really nailing who is the actually the real customer.
Yeah. One of the reasons they chose that was because the founder, he himself had a background in building. So he came kind of with a lot of business intelligence on how to serve builders. And
Mm.
this is where the artificial intelligence and the transformation took place because one might say, well, in order to win deals, you need to have the best kitchens, right? So if you want to win a builder, you need to do a really good kitchen. That's true because they did position themselves as a premium product. But actually what made them sticky and eventually indispensable was because they became the information hub. They knew more information than the builder did at any one point on the kitchen, where the kitchen was up to with the installation, which fittings the customer had asked for. Did they
Mm.
want marble tops? Are they going to go with bronze? So all the components and everything that we're using this custom kitchen company had a central brain, a hub, where all this information was being kept. So that the builder could at any one point, either through self-service, through an application, they can see where the build is up to and what's coming, how the parts are tracking, how the installation is tracking. But more importantly, they could just dial in if they wanted to. So they could just phone in old school style, and just say, hey, how's Jane's kitchen coming along? And the telephonist is just is using the same system that he can see from
Mm.
their phone.
So what the builder's really getting is obviously they get the product for their customer, but they're also getting peace of mind. They're managing 50 things, but this one project in the is actually so much more peaceful and easy for them because they're not the one that has to manage every part of it. There's a central hub. So working with them just makes their life so much easier than working with other suppliers who they have to follow up on this and they have to follow up on that, and the burden falls on their shoulder. So it's a huge extra benefit.
Yeah, I think part of the value proposition of putting the automation in was how much money they could save builders. And the
Mm.
reason they save builders money is because the kitchens are delivered on time, because there's an accountability, a tracking process with all that information being stored. So there's less
Mm.
errors, deliveries are more traceable, the fit and finish is done better. The customer signs off on videos and photos, so the sign off process is cleaner. So, builders, apparently, what's important to them is the quicker the project gets done, the more money they make. Every day that the project is open, the less money they make. So, they actually make more money by asking this company to provide their services. And yes, it had something to do with great kitchens, but it had a lot to do with automation and artificial intelligence.
Just incredible. And, one of the other things that I hear as well is error reduction. My great aunt bought a marble tabletop for a new kitchen and they just gave the wrong color. And all of us, and it's black and white, she's asked for one, they've given her another one, and all of a sudden they've got to go through all the cost of, replacing that and all this delay, and it costs them, like there goes the profit on that particular
Yeah.
job. So I also, as well as speed, there's also that error reduction element. I mean, it seems crazy, right? You've got one job, right, to do it, get the right kitchen bench, and then it got mixed up, but it happens. So the error reduction part, and I can just hear it's kind of like the network effect. Once you start working with this company, you don't want to switch because you've just got the ease of using this particular system. So why make your life more complicated? So I can imagine just the stickiness and the repeat business would have been huge.
A lot of the custom kitchen manufacturers don't really understand supply chain, so they don't think about what you just described. Well, your aunt, right, receiving the wrong tabletop, the wrong finish, the wrong color, often happens because of just the process of the client's brief getting to procurement doesn't work because there is no automation. It relies on a human being to pick up something and move it to somewhere else. So one of the changes that we made in their company was all procurement of those kinds of elements, which have to be materials, which have to be purchased for a client, would go through a procurement officer who's reading and receiving the information directly off the client brief, which was signed before the project started. And they're not looking at paper copies or they're not talking to people on the phone to get that information. They're seeing it digitally right in front of them just as they're making the orders.
So powerful, so powerful. And what was the end result for their business? Like commercially, what sort of a difference did it make to growth or sales or revenue?
Yeah, so they went from an order book of 1 month to 6 months, and they were able to open up another factory. And so they're doing really well. They're looking very healthy, and they're looking at how they can expand across the state. So originally they were just thinking about custom kitchens being something local. Now they're thinking about how they can go and dominate the state.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. And when you've got that sort of 6 month order book, then you've also got a bit more pricing flexibility. You can perhaps increase prices to improve margin. And I guess one of the amazing things when you build a system like this is it becomes modular. Like you can, if this system is working in one city of 100,000 people, then how many cities of 100,000 people are there in Australia that you could also be going to? There might be another 20 or area. So there might be another 30. So that's the way to grow something big. It's the McDonald's strategy. You grow in a modular way. Well, Anthony, that is so powerful. I really thank you for your time today, and it's so inspiring to hear about businesses transformed. Anything to say before we sign off?
Well, I think we've got even more interesting projects coming. I'm just looking at what's coming up next week, and I'm really excited.
Sounds great. Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah, thanks very much. Take care.